History is changing its rhythm, and those who do not perceive it now will understand it when it is already too late. There are moments when the world does not simply turn in circles, it repositions itself, it shakes, it awakens, and it reorders from within. And this beginning of the year carries that seal, a collective sensation of rupture, as if reality were leaving behind an ancient stage to enter another one, clearer, more brutal in its truth, yet also more just in its destiny. This is not a trend, nor a passing comment, nor an opinion. It is a greater process, a rising tide, an energy that pushes peoples to remember who they are and to look straight at what has been done to them for decades. For a long time, dictatorships and closed systems were sustained by a simple principle: control what people see, control what people know, control what people believe. And when information is controlled, fear is controlled, when fear is controlled, behavior is controlled, and when behavior is controlled, life itself is controlled. This is how many regimes have functioned throughout history, through speeches, slogans, promises, invented enemies, and guilt repeated until it becomes political religion. This is the art of manipulation, making the oppressed defend the cage as if it were home, and making the people applaud the jailer as if he were a savior. But that cycle is breaking. And it is not breaking because of one man, one country, or one ideology. It is breaking because human consciousness is crossing a threshold. Today, technology has done something empires did not expect: it has made truth difficult to contain. The world of the past could isolate entire peoples, cut news, falsify narratives, burn books, silence voices, and make the night feel eternal. Today, even though censorship still exists, even though repression persists, even though digital walls and surveillance remain, reality has cracks through which light seeps in. And when light enters, lies begin to smell, because they can no longer pretend to be pure. That is why I speak of winds of freedom. Not as empty poetry, but as a real phenomenon. Freedom is becoming contagious. It is an epidemic of consciousness. It is not transmitted by a biological virus, it is transmitted by evidence. It is transmitted by comparison. It is transmitted when a young person discovers that somewhere else in the world someone can think without asking permission, speak without being punished, travel without being betrayed, and progress without being robbed. It is transmitted when people realize they were sold scarcity as virtue and sacrifice as destiny. It is transmitted when a people understand that they were kept hungry so they would not have strength, and confused so they would not have direction. And when that people awakens, regimes begin to tremble, because the one thing they cannot control is consciousness once it ignites. Many will say this is politics. And I say it is not, this is moral. This is spirituality applied to real life. Because when a system strips rights, persecutes difference, punishes thought, humiliates need, destroys family, denies faith, or uses faith as a disguise to rule and harm, that is not just politics, that is a war against the soul of humanity. And every true priest, every conscious human being, every responsible soul is obligated to observe this and to warn about it. Not to sow hatred, but to break hypnosis. Not to call for violence, but to call for clarity. Because clarity is the first liberation. The world is entering a stage where historical lies will be exposed one by one. Not because anyone is perfect, but because the old structure can no longer sustain its own weight. Closed regimes do not fall only because of external enemies, they fall because of their internal rigidity. They fall because they corrupt from within. They fall because those who shout morality live in immorality. They fall because those who preach sacrifice build privileges. They fall because those who accuse mafias feed from shadow networks. They fall because those who speak of the people fear the people. And when a regime fears its own people, it is already condemned, because power that needs to kill in order to exist is, in essence, already dead. Now, it must also be said, this change will not be clean or perfect. There will be resistance. There will be propaganda. There will be manipulation. There will be attempts to convince the world that the cage is safety and that freedom is danger. There will be those who try to place shields of distraction, noise, lies, saturation, disinformation. They will do what they have always done, confuse to maintain control. But the century of confusion as an eternal tool is ending. Because humanity is learning to see patterns. It is learning to identify the tricks. It is learning to recognize the trap before falling into it. And this is crucial. There is no revolution more dangerous to tyrants than a people who have learned to read between the lines. Technology, which many see only as entertainment, is in reality a hammer against isolation. Networks, satellites, global connectivity systems, alternative channels, digital communities, all of this is making obsolete the old strategy of locking peoples inside their own version of reality. And yes, in the future, forms of communication will be even more impactful, more visual, more invasive, and they will also be used to manipulate. But here lies the true battle. It is not only who has the technology, but who has the consciousness to use it without becoming its slave. Because power will always seek to turn tools into chains, and consciousness will always seek to turn tools into keys. That is why this message is not merely an analysis of regimes, it is a call to human responsibility. Because freedom is not born complete, it is learned. There are peoples who leave prison but keep their minds locked inside. There are those who break a system only to repeat the same abuse under another name. That is why, when I speak of winds of freedom, I also speak of inner discipline. Freedom without consciousness becomes chaos, and chaos is the terrain where tyrants return stronger, disguised as order. So yes, we must awaken, but with intelligence. We must break, but with purpose. We must change, but without losing our soul. And here enters the greatest truth: humanity is not changing only to correct dictatorships. Humanity is changing because it is preparing for a new stage of its existence. The future of the human being is not limited to an island, a continent, a party, or a flag. The future of humanity points toward expansion. And to expand, it must first unite. Because no species can leap into deep space while bleeding from tribal conflicts. No civilization can become interplanetary while still living in the age of fear, where some rule by force and others obey by hunger. The path to the cosmos requires planetary consciousness. It requires understanding that Earth is not a battlefield of ideologies, but a womb that gave birth to us all. It requires understanding that if we are to live on other worlds, we must first learn to be truly human on this one. That is why I say, these changes are not small. They are historical. They are the prelude to a greater reordering. Dictatorships will not fall simply because the world wants it. They will fall because they will no longer be able to sustain the deception. They will fall because their own contradictions will expose them. They will fall because connected peoples will do what was once difficult: compare, question, see, and confirm. And when a people move from "they told me" to "I saw it myself," the spell is broken. That is where the beginning of the end starts for systems that feed on darkness. This message does not seek to offend or provoke, it seeks to warn. It seeks to leave record that the world is entering a stage where freedom will sound like a drum in many lands. Some will try to silence that drum. Others will try to imitate it to manipulate. But the true drum is recognized. It does not call for hatred, it calls for dignity. It does not call for revenge, it calls for justice. It does not call for destruction, it calls for reconstruction. Because real freedom is not shouting, it is being able to live without being humiliated. Real freedom is not a slogan. It is a human right that must be protected with consciousness, memory, and true spirituality. And yes, I repeat it firmly. Because this is what is moving in the air of the world, isolations will break. Peoples will see. Voices will awaken. Realities will filter through. Thrones will shift. And amid that noise, every human being will have to choose, to be part of deception for convenience, or to be part of truth by conscience. Because in the end, history does not remember those who remain silent to save themselves, it remembers those who spoke to save others. Sincerely, Professor Jose Alberto Espinosa Barrero. Tadan Kizi and Kiza Engaluyente Congo. Onichanga Oba Oloyu.